Hello, and welcome to Monroeville at your service for April 2026. A little bit of a different format today's show, starting with me. So allow me to introduce myself. I'm Jared Robinson, Director of Communications here for the Municipality of Monroeville. I'm typically behind the camera, but slid into Alex's seat today. That's because, well, Alex is in a different seat. You'll see him in just a moment. We're kicking off a series of roundtable discussion style shows here on Mays, beginning with municipal managers, both past and present. Joining us in studio today, on my left, we have Marshall Bond, Tim Little, and on my right, there's Alex, as mentioned, and also he's joined by our assistant manager, MK Lang. Everyone, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
For sure, this will be fun. We're looking forward to this.
It's great seeing you in that space.
Okay, yeah, it looks good on me.
I didn't like it.
For at least this one time. I guess point of order before we kind of get started. A couple of you are a few years my senior, so just want to make sure we can go on first name basis for today. That's good?
Perfectly fine with me.
All right. Just wanted to make sure. Even though I will say it would have been enticing to say Mr. Bond. Mr. Bond, like one of those Bond villains.
Well, when he served in the military.
That's right. Military intelligence, too.
Right.
That's probably because my name was Bond. I don't know. But,
okay. But yeah, we'll go first name basis for today. So I guess starting off, I want to give kind of viewers a little bit of a sense of your perspectives and when you served as manager here. So if you can kind of just quickly, let viewers know your time and your years as manager here. We'll start over here with you, Marshall.
Okay. Yeah, I started as an intern out of the University of Pittsburgh in 1968 and had a break in service in 1969. I went into the military. That was the Vietnam War, and you didn't have too many choices. And then I came back to Monroeville after my service time in 1972, and then I served up until 1986. And from there, I did a little more service in management. I was the manager in Hampton Township for a while, but then I had the opportunity to get into the nonprofit sector, and I was with the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce as the manager of public-private partnerships, which was kind of an interesting stint because had at the time a lot of the larger corporations. The chairman of the chamber was either the head of Westinghouse or U.S. Steel, and that was back in the day when those corporations were pretty interesting and pretty viable. And from there, I went to the Pittsburgh High Technology Council, which was all the young and up-and-coming companies in Pittsburgh. And actually, this gave me a perspective to see how the private sector actually managed, because I did their CEO network, I did their quality network, and then Monroeville had a little bit of time where managers their tenure was not very long, and by and large, somebody asked if I would like to come back, and in 1998, I decided, yes, I'd like to I had always enjoyed Monroeville. To me, was a good fit, and so from 1998 to 2010, I served again as the manager.
Okay, and then Tim, for you?
Yeah, I started here in 2010, and then I retired in 2024. Served here during that time. Before that, I was a borough manager in Baldwin Borough for about 6 years, and interviewed for the position and accepted the position, and was quite honored to get the position. And before Baldwin Borough, I was a manager in a couple townships up in Butler County, And also my first job out of graduate school was assistant manager out in Montgomery County in Franconia Township. I was their first assistant manager, a rapidly growing area, and I got my feet wet on land development and finances, and I worked out there for 3 years. And before that, I was a high school teacher for 8 years at the Still Valley School District, and then down in Florida for 2 years. So that's kind of a capsule summary of my career.
Right.
You know, for 34 years in local government and 8 years in education. So.
Okay. And then so for this side of the table, obviously, you know, you hold current positions. Just let everybody know kind of when you got hired here. And I guess we can do the math on how long it's been, but.
I'm a newbie, January 2024. I took over after Tim retired. And so I'm still counting like in human development in months. I'm like 27 months old or so.
Okay. Yeah. MK for you?
Yeah, I'm also very new. I started shortly thereafter in February 2025. So I just celebrated 1 year. Woo. And although it was budgeted before in Tim's administration, I'm the first assistant municipal manager. And so that's been very exciting to kind of work through with Alex.
Right. Okay. So, you know, I kind of sets the tone for everybody. MK, I'll come back around to you with this next question. But I guess, you know, why Monroeville? What is it that attracted you to this position? Ultimately, why did you decide to come here?
It was actually odd the way that I kind of took the turn to Monroeville. My general government experience has been in county management. And counties are large. And so when I came circling back around to Pennsylvania after some traveling for my husband's job, I kind of looked at, you know, I'm pretty young. I have some pretty young kids at home. I wanted to look at an opportunity that would allow me to grow and learn in my career. And Monroeville just really stuck out because they have a lot going on, you know, with the mall redevelopment and just economic growth in general. There's a lot of resources here for us to be able to do innovative things like partnering with the Monroeville Foundation, being out in the community, and just really using my skill sets in grant writing and finance to give back. And so that's kind of how I chose Monroeville. And also through leadership, I feel like it's important to always choose really great leadership, especially when you want to look at a long-term career commitment. And I did some research on Alex, and I really liked his leadership style. And so I thought Monroeville would be a great point.
Right. Alex, for you, what was attractive about the municipality here?
It goes back to what Marshall said a little bit earlier. To be honest with you, a lot of us in the municipal manager world kind of saw Monroeville as having a reputation of being hard on managers and a place that didn't have the stability to really, you know, want to be attracting work. So when I knew Tim was retiring, he and I met in Monroeville for lunch. And I asked him, I said, Tim, I'm assuming I'm a friend of yours. So would you recommend your job to a friend when you leave? And he kind of was taken back. He was like, hey, I got this place in pretty good shape. They're pretty stable. I'm like, but really? Because, you know, to leave one place and to throw your hat into another place, you lose all the security. You know, I didn't need to leave the position I was in with Churchill Borough. But Tim sold it. And to his credit, you know, coming to Monroeville in so many levels is the best decision of my career. And there's so many things that Tim laid the groundwork, not the least of which was financial stability. You know, if you want to have sanity for a manager, it's good to have money in the bank. And it's good to have solid reserves built up. And he also had worked council, I think, through a lot of change. And Tim could get into the details of what he did. And I wonder a lot of times as I'm trying to do the job, how he managed to do that. Because every time challenges occur, it's almost like role-playing games where you have experience points and you lose some of your strength in that effort. But Tim managed a really tumultuous period of time in Monroeville and then got calm, steady waters for me to be able to come in. And I'd like to say smooth sail for the first couple of years, but he made it worth coming to and attractive to come to.
Right. How about for you guys?
Well, for me, the attraction of Monroeville is from a municipal manager standpoint is quite obvious. You go through your career And at least in the Pittsburgh area, maybe not in other parts of the country, in the Pittsburgh area, at least for me, it was cutting your teeth, so to speak, on smaller municipalities, getting experience. And when Monroeville opened up and Marshall was retiring, I called Marshall on the phone and he and I talked. And I had, to what Alex is saying, I had some different older colleagues, as I will say, mention, are you sure you want to go to Monroeville? And I said, yeah. I said, it's time for me to get into a larger municipality with a multitude of departments, with a lot of things going on. So I interviewed for the position and got the position, and I have no regrets at all. I think, as Alex said, I think it was a good move for me. I think that it was the right time for me to get into a larger municipality and really doing what a municipal manager does with respect to strategically looking into the future. Because as the old saying goes, the more money you get paid, the more your decisions affect the future. And that was very emblematic of Monroeville, because in other places I worked, you were dealing with making out the budget. We have a finance director here that does most of that. You do the budget message and you do the overview. And it is a lot of that way here in Monroeville, where you're more of a symphony conductor. And that is a good thing for somebody that finally gets some experience under their belt and move into, because you don't have a lot of very large municipalities, when I say that, of populations of 60, 70, 80,000, 100,000, like you might have in California, in Florida. As we all know, Pennsylvania is very fragmented. Mm-hmm. And if you decide to stay in Pennsylvania, in the Pittsburgh area, at least this is my experience, is I had to work up. As I said, I worked in some small municipalities before that. So that, I mean, coming to Monroeville was evident. It was just the next step for me, and it was a good move for me.
Right. And Marshall, for you, just to kind of finish up the thought of why Monroeville. So obviously you were a little bit younger when you took the position here. But similar, question, during that time, what was attractive about Monroeville that allowed you to come here? Well,
Monroeville back in the 60s was it was a somewhat blank drawing board. I mean, we had the Miracle Mile, which opened in the 50s, and we were also fortunate to have a number of research centers, because I remember on our letterhead we were, quote, the residential research center of the nation, because we had U.S. Steel Research, we had Koppers Company Research, bituminous coal, and then we got Westinghouse Nuclear Research here. And we also had the community college, Boyce Campus came out, and we had Route 22 and the beginning of development. When I left in '69 to go into the service, the Monroeville Mall had just started, and Monroeville Boulevard was a 2-lane road. When I came back in '72, the mall was completed, and this was a 4-lane highway. So the thing that attracted me is that there was an opportunity really to professionally manage. I was relatively young. I think when I got appointed in '73, I was 28 years old, and it was really a tremendous opportunity to grow along with the community.
Right. So we talked about when you all were here. We talked about why you came here. I kind of want to talk about, the job. I always find the title, the jobs that you all hold, pretty unique, because you're in a position to where, obviously you're a manager, and so you kind of lead a municipality, but you have a staff underneath you, but then you have a board, council, elected body who you have to report to. So it's a manager. I guess that's why it became the title. Tim, you kind of alluded to it being like a conductor. But I kind of wanted to ask, how do you all, or some of these questions are past tense, some are present tense, but how did you all go about establishing a culture within your respective workforce? Tim, we could start with you on that one.
I think the best way to do that, and that's any place I've worked, you have to be firm but fair. And I think that if the people that work underneath you, and also the elected officials, and even the residents for that matter, you cannot, when you're supervising people and you're in a position like a municipal manager, you cannot overreact to everything that comes up every day. Every day I would come into the office and I'd say, okay, what is going to be the new thing today that I have no idea that's going to hit me? It could be big, it could be small. And to create a culture of stability, of fairness, and it's just through different decisions that you make that you create that culture. And not only with the employees, but it's also with the elected body. I believe you have to, one of the banes of my life is looking on both sides of the coin. And that's a pro and a con, because sometimes when you do that, it takes longer to do that. But I always thought it was the best way to approach decision making. And when you're handling employees, especially when you have 4 unions here in Monroeville, there's grievances being filed. You have to be appear to be fair but firm. And I'm not going to be the one to sit here and say that everybody looked at me as being fair and firm. I'm sure they didn't. But I think that's what you have to do through your decision making, is to try to be as fair. And when you do make a decision, explain the decision of why this decision was made as much as you can. That doesn't mean everybody's going to accept it. But that's the best way, I believe, is to create a stable culture in any kind of organization.
Yeah, what do you guys think?
So, it goes back to the first question for me. The Home Rule Charter envisions a manager as the chief executive officer. And if you can think of the elected officials as the board of directors in a public, private sector format, I'm the CEO, and then staff, would be the staff that I serve. So the department heads would come to the manager, and then I work with council. That was very attractive. One of the reasons I wanted to come to Monroeville is I saw that as a really modern way to form a local government and to have it run well. And as Tim mentioned, the challenge of the position, quite frankly, is those audiences of the council, the elected officials, the mayor, of course, the residents, and the staff. For me, it was really diving into trying to figure out what was Monroeville's mission. Why do we exist? What was our vision? What did we want to be if we're successful? What does that look like? Then what were our values? What did we hold dear? And it was really fun to do that exercise, because the staff was able, and the elected officials involved as well in that process, made it all about service and community. So if you look at our values, it spells out community as an acronym to spell out community. And I was really excited to see staff come up with that. Fits into what we're all about, serving people, and then that desired outcomes. At the end of the day, if we're successful, what would that look like? We think we will be safe. We will be run efficiently. We'll be fiscally responsible. We'll be transparent, and the different desired outcomes, working with that. And it's been such a privilege, because as Tim alluded to, you've got department heads who are basically really running that unit well. And, really don't need a whole lot of oversight. But as a manager, you have to find a way to nuance serving them, whether you're mentoring them, or you're being a leader and getting resources for them, or showing them a way to go, or coaching them on how to make improvements, or managing the resources that they need to be successful.
Well, just to follow up, you touched on a term that is very good, values. And you can do a strategic planning, which I don't know how far along or how much you've done on that. And you try in local government to do a strategic plan. And with different elected officials coming in and out, it's always hard to continue that. But so I believe as manager, just to follow up with what you're saying is the word values. You could have something written on a piece of paper, but if you don't follow it, the credibility of your leadership falls. So the values is extremely important, and it goes back to your question about culture. And through decision-making process, you have to view the different values. Like you said, Alex, who are we? What are we about? And that, I believe, is what creates a good culture in any organization. Just part of a strategic plan.
So what about the other side of it? And obviously you're managing a staff. We talked about the culture, but what about dealing with the elected body and some of the challenges that presents when you kind of know the day-to-day things that are going on and you're trying to convey and communicate certain things to your elected officials? What are some of the challenges there of sort of managing those relationships?
Well, I'd back up a little bit in terms of the first question too. And I mean, for me, I try to stress relationships. And that included council folks and the elected officials. In that, in addition to building a relationship with your department heads and trying each and every employee, what I used to do is I'd have a get acquainted for new council people sheet that, when they first got there, we would sort of sit down and I'd learn a little bit about how many kids they had and when their birthday was, that basic stuff. But then also, what goals do you want to achieve during your 4 years on council? And so it was sort of an in-depth drilling of their interests so that there was a basis. And you'd be surprised how many times that really, doesn't happen. And so you know where they want to end up, where they think they want to end up. And so you have a basis for interacting. I think that's sort of the key, if you would, to sort of understand and try to develop a one-on-one interpersonal relationship, and hopefully base that on at least knowing and trust.
I have to agree with Marshall on just the relational piece of being a manager or an assistant manager. I think that in our professional field, there are a lot of people who could come in and manage and know a lot about the profession, but there is something extra to be said about how an individual manages people, whether that's residents, whether that's council and or staff. And I think if you just look at the growth of local government managers over the years, there is always this underlining factor, whether that's in the actual professional field itself or even in the academic endeavors that we kind of go through to get into our professional fields, and that's servant leadership. And Greenleaf is one of the big servant leadership theorists. And I always think about what he says and then combining that, with my faith to kind of serve as Jesus served. And so how am I serving that person I'm interacting with today? How can I make their experience with me and with my job better? And sometimes that's reading the room, that's acting differently around different people. And that's just really trying to figure out how to get people the tools and resources and to really understand them on a psychological level.
For sure. So let's take a break. We'll take a quick break here. We'll come back and resume the discussion. We'll have some more topics. We'll talk about budgeting. Perhaps we'll touch on the mall and a few other things. So back with more on Monroeville at your service.
Hello, everyone, and happy 75th anniversary to the municipality of Monroeville. On behalf of Allegheny County, I want to congratulate the residents, community leaders, and local businesses who have helped make Monroeville such a vibrant and welcoming place over the past 75 years. Monroeville has long been an important hub for our region, bringing together families, commerce, healthcare, and community life in a way that reflects the strength of Allegheny County as a whole. Anniversaries like this are a chance to celebrate the people who built the community we know today and look ahead to the future we're continuing to create together. Congratulations again on 75 years, and here's to many more years of growth, opportunity, and community in Monroeville.
Congratulations on 75 years of Monroeville. Monroeville has always been shaped by its community, and that's what makes it strong. While we celebrate 75 years, I want us to take a moment to look forward. We all can keep building a Monroeville where every family can thrive, where opportunities are real and accessible, and where our communities are supported, connected, and prosperous. The future of Monroeville is not just something we inherit. It's something we can all build together. So here's to the next 75 years.
As you can see, Monroeville has undergone a lot of change in its 75 years of existence, with certainly more to come. As we welcome back today's guest to our roundtable discussion here, we were just discussing a myriad of topics. I kind of wanted to get to some things, community growth related, budget related, and I kind of wanted to start there with the budget. It's not necessarily a riveting topic among residents and things like that. It's not, one of the most popular things to discuss, but obviously it's one of the most important things that you all do in the titles that you all hold. So I just kind of wanted to ask about how you go about putting together the budget, how you go about making decisions to, what might need cut back, what might need added. And, I guess just some things that maybe you kind of wish the public was a little bit more aware of when it comes to the budget.
I'll go first. It begins with stewardship. To me, there's a fear that we should have as local government officials that the money we receive really comes at the end of a gun barrel. And that sounds kind of harsh, but the reality is if you stop paying your taxes, whether that's real estate tax or your income tax, or try to avoid sales taxes if that's possible, you'll find yourself in trouble with the law. And that's a humbling responsibility to know that our money comes to us, that way. And so it really emphasizes the idea of stewardship and service, that it is their money and it was hard earned. Governments don't create economy, we sort of serve the economy. And so we take those resources and we want to do the best we can to be most efficient. I'm very proud to work in local government. I worked in local government for over 35 years, and it's really been about, that's the level of government that's closest to the people, that provides services directly to the people. State government and federal government has lots of value, but I feel like the further you get away from the people, the less of a sound steward you might be able to be, and it might be less efficient the more hands touch the dollars that are hard-earned by residents. At the end of the day, though, I would put our services up with anyone and its efficiency and what you get for your dollar. We take care of the garbage services here without any additional bill or fees for that. That's part of your municipal tax services. We do have local dispatch, so if your doggy's lost, we can provide a high-touch connection for you to get that dog. And speaking of dogs, we also have our own animal shelter. So we don't outsource that. We do that here locally. And in the library and the senior center and the myriad of parks and rec services, but really police and public works. At the end of the day, we're a road owning entity and our roads are very well cared for. We put a lot of resources in that. We have a very sophisticated pavement management program that makes sure the dollars find their way into guide rail, into asphalt, and plowing and taking care of roads. Which are the state roads. and you know which are the county roads if you live in Monroeville. You can tell because we are generous with the salt and we are active with the plow, and we get after it. And our police. This police force is detectives. We have canines. We have all kinds of different technologies that we're utilizing. We were one of the first to do cameras on the officers. We embrace the technology. We're looking to deploy a drone system here, and we're taking our 911 operations into a real-time crime center, which will enable officers to have data in the field to help them make better decisions in a very evolving, rapidly developing criminal world. But our police are ready. It's a very sophisticated system out there, that is, and our police are just as sophisticated and able to handle whatever comes their way. So I'm just so excited, as you can tell, about what we do here in local government, but it begins with resources. If it wasn't for the hard-earned dollars of taxpayers allowing us to have that and steward that money, none of that would get done.
If I can piggyback off of that as well, budgeting is a year-round process. You know, we're required by our home rule charter and our code to produce a capital budget each year, which we did last August, and then, of course, adopt the annual budget in December. But just moving through that process, you know, we start in January. We pass a new budget. You know, what does our end of the year look like? What are we going to do for the first quarter? And it's a lot of financial analysis. Uniquely in my role as assistant manager, I've been working with our finance director to produce some more reader-friendly reports. We just came up with a first quarter capital improvements report that will be on our website shortly this week. And we want to continue to operate that way and grow in transparency and find better ways to involve the public in, you know, being a part of that finance journey.
Marshall, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to maybe put a plug in for the return on investment of municipal management. And where I'm going with this is that I think Monroeville was fortunate in that we were able to get out in front of opportunities which paid off for the tax-paying resident. By that I mean Monroeville took advantage of the opportunity to become a home rule municipality. And that allowed us to do things from a taxing and spending, but primarily taxing standpoint that other communities were not able. We fortunate in that we had the mercantile tax, we had business privilege tax, we had occupation privilege tax, we had earned income tax, and of course we have the property tax. But the strategy that sort of was the payoff is that because we had so many different type of taxes, we were able to keep those taxes relatively low. So what we were able to do is sort of spread out the hurt, if you would, the financial hurt. And as a result, we still had a good financial base, and we could then finance the services. I always told my folks that, you know, there's no reason for you to cheat or steal or try to be crazy out there because you're, you know, in one of the best compensated positions, be it police, public works, even refuse collection. And, but we did that without breaking the bank or taxing people beyond comparative
And the beauty of that is, if you think of our peak population at times being 20%, 30%, maybe 50% over what our nighttime population is because of visitors from the turnpike and all that, the hospitals, they're contributing to those public safety services. So our residents, particularly on the real estate tax, pay a lower rate relatively for the high amount of services they get.
So, you know, it's just the ability to understand what's happening 2, 3, 4, even 5 years down the line and get yourself lined up so you're in the best possible position. And I think good managers do that. They get out in front of the curve and make the best possible scenario with the support of council so it becomes a pretty good deal.
Your question was, Jared, about developing a budget, and a lot of residents may or may not know the process really starts in August, actually the first week in August, and a memo goes out from Josie, the finance director, and me together about getting your budgets together, and then we set up meetings like this one right here with me and Josie and now Alex and the finance director and the department head and anybody else that the department head wants to bring in that helps them justify their budget. So you do that with 9, 10 departments, and that takes a very long time, because what you want to be able to do you have to do under the Home Rule Charter is get a draft, and we'll call it a draft as a loose term, to council at the October work session or council meeting. And then the manager goes through the budget and just the highlights of the budget. Because you keep your projections, and here's your expenses, and here is your fund balance you have, and you can't keep chipping away at your fund balance all the time, because we always had a good fund balance. So somewhere down the road, we knew a tax increase was going to have to occur. We knew that. And council was really prepared to do that, the then council, moving into 2021. They were prepared to do that. They were prepared to pass a capital improvement program. We were going to hire 5 more police officers, which we didn't do at that time. And then the pandemic was going along, and council decided, rightfully so, we cannot increase taxes with everybody else out there hurting, especially with a senior citizen population. And all of the Pittsburgh area has an older median age. So that was not done, but you guys did that just 2 years ago, but as far as the budgeting process, that was a unique thing during the pandemic that occurred in my tenure here. But it's a very long process from beginning of August until when the budget is finally adopted at the December council meeting. So you're looking at a 4 or 5 month process where most of the decisions that the elected body make are really for capital items, because your revenue that you're taking in is already fixed revenue in most cases, because you have 4 unions. You have wage increases, you have health care benefits. All of that is a majority of your budget, and that usually is 75, 80%. So your elected body is really making decisions about improvements that are going to happen, take over a certain amount of years.
Right. I have to ask about the mall. If the budget isn't a riveting topic, the mall certainly is. Lots of people interested in what's going to happen with the mall. And I mean, we have 50 years of municipal management here at this table. I'm just kind of interested in how do you all think we got here to this point, and what do you think would best serve Monroeville to have happen with that mall and that property?
Well, we're waiting right now for Cypress, who's the developer on behalf of Walmart, to come public, with plans. It's been a long period. It feels like, though it's only been a little over a year since now they have owned the mall. They closed sometime, I think, last February on the mall. So in that period, they've been working through the complexities of 120 or so different leases and interests in the property itself. And I think that's one of the reasons why malls generally are hard to redevelop, is the complexities that come with malls, leases that provide obligations and have rights for long periods of time. And some of those, we're talking decades. So Cypress has had to decouple and work through, buy out, terminate, through those systems. And that process, I think, has been very difficult for them, and it leaves them to some uncertainty for us. And that uncertainty is whether the mall redevelopment will be as ambitious or complete or complex as it was sold or presented to us initially, which was a complete removal of the mall as we know it and a complete renewal with new stores, shops, and even at the initial stages, a little bit of mixed use elements. The mixed use probably won't likely happen. However, the complexity of dealing with the leases may result in not such an ambitious project. It may be more limited in its scope, and that's we're waiting right now with bated breath to see what that is. In other words, the mall could be somewhat intact, and some of the store layout that you see, the ring road and the annex area where Harbor Freight is, all of that staying intact, and part of the mall being demolished and having a Walmart built where part of the mall was. That's sort of the minimal what could happen. To the other extreme, as I described earlier, which would be the removal of all of the mall, removal of the annex, removal of the Best Buy store, and then a reconfiguration with new construction of some of the existing retailers like Dick's, like Best Buy, Harbor Freight, I mentioned earlier, the movie theater, those being given new buildings in a new arrangement of urban, suburban, retail landscape. So we're very anxious right now. It's a national news story, quite frankly. The New York Times in October ran an article about Walmart buying the Monroeville Mall because of the unusual nature of Walmart itself doing it. Having said all that, it should be close to the finish line. And what does that mean? The finish line of presenting to the public what that looks like. And again, we don't know whether that will be a complete redevelopment or a minimalist approach that only delivers a Walmart at the property. Whatever that is, we expect that soon. We hope it's the latter. We hope it is the complete redevelopment. We hope it is the ambitious, large $300, $400 million investment and not the potentially $150 million investment. If whatever it is, it will be presented soon, and it will go through a process of public meetings and hearings and permitting and all that good stuff, which will lead to either partial demolition of the mall or complete demolition of the mall, which will lead to either partial reconstruction of a new building, a Walmart, or complete redevelopment. But I like everyone to think of it as really the time, even before Marshall, you came here, in the mid-'60s, when Oxford was dreaming up the original Monroeville Mall and Oxford Drive and Monroeville Mall, or Monroeville Mall Boulevard, and the roads that were there, the hotel complex and all of that. We're at that period now. And in that period, for the next 60 years, we've been shaped by that investment of the Monroeville Mall. We became synonymous as a mall community with that investment. And so we're sort of like that now. That's why we're hoping for the most robust, the most ambitious project to be proposed to the community, because that will set our trajectory for the next 30 to 40 or maybe even 50 years, that single investment. A lot hangs on the next couple of months, a lot of planning and a lot of what the future is going to look like for our community, and to what level that future is able to attain will be determined over the next few months. It's a very exciting time. And I will be honest, it's been a challenge over the last years watching it, because I feel like it's not as simple as everyone imagines it to be. You figure the world's largest retailer, limitless resources, they can do whatever they want, but it's not as simple as all of that.
For sure.
The glimmer of hope is that you do have a owner with deep pockets in terms of capable of doing that. I know when Almanzo's hotel first sold, it sold to a lesser financial wherewithal developer. And I just knew that was going to be a real tussle in terms of trying to get something done with that. And fortuitously, UPMC bought the property and, was able to develop it. And of course, UPMC has pretty deep pockets too. But that, like I said, that I think that's the glimmer of hope that it's just not a holding company in New York or Chicago that owns the place and they do nothing, like Pittsburgh Mills or something like that. So yeah, there are no guarantees in development, but you know, you've got the largest retailer in the world that owns that property, and
as you can imagine, that adds a bit to the complexity. So the ones with the longer term lease interests have more leverage in a sense, saying, well, if company A owns this, I could expect this on my ask. If company B, and company B's Walmart, I could expect this. So unfortunately, fortunately, that creates complexity as well, but we're trusting the process. Cypress is the developer entity, and their role is to provide a Walmart at the site. Their opportunity is if they maximize the site, potentially they can maximize their own profit. However, they can't lose their shirt to do that. So they'll do whatever they can to meet the buyer's demands, which is to get something there. Whether they can do all of what we've thought about happening remains to be seen. So it's a very pins and needles times right now, but we are very thankful that the transaction happened the way it did, because it could have been a holding company, like you say, who purchased the mall and just milked it for rents, and we're not looking to do investment in the mall. So it is good that we have, you know, that investor there.
No, I agree with that. My, you know, how we got to this point, and Marshall was here when the mall was being built, or when he came out of the service. But when I started here in 2010, CBL, the owner of the mall, they put in I believe the figure was $5 million. I mean, I wouldn't testify to that, but that's the figure that I heard as far as cosmetics done at the mall. They painted, they did a lot of upgrades with carpeting in the kiosk area. And that was in 2011. And also, the theaters were built. And there was a stormwater management issue with that because they didn't have any stormwater management when the mall was built. So CBL was doing some things to keep the mall progressing, we'll say. But in February of 2015, as everybody, I remember the date, February the 7th, 2015, was when the shooting happened down at Macy's. And things started to go south from there. But to give CBL some credit here, they did institute, we met with them down at the mall, and they did institute their policy, I forget the acronym, that no child under 18 could be in the mall at a certain time unless they were accompanied by, you know, somebody that was over 21. And that seemed to work well. And because they did that in other places, I believe they own 91, 92 properties, plazas, malls across the country. And that worked. But you could see as time was going on, the mall was having less and less and less occupancy, or if they did have occupancy, it seemed to be temporary, or it seemed to be, we'll call it five and dime. And that was the different feedback I got from residents mostly. But I am personally very optimistic with Walmart buying that property. I think, to Marshall's point, they have the deep pockets, and I really do believe that could be another destination point in Monroeville, along with the convention center, the hospitals. They're a destination point. They drive commerce. Even our park that Marshall was very instrumental in. Our park is a destination center. So Monroeville has destination center, but I really believe this could really change, as you said, Alex, the next 20, 30, 40 years of Monroeville, if they do something with $500 million down there. And I hope they do, because I think it would be very successful. And I do think it would be a detriment to the monolith that I call the Squirrel Hill tunnels, with people coming out here from on the other side of the tunnels. But I have always said Monroeville's future and I said this when I first started working here, maybe not west of the Squirrel Hill tunnels, but more east into Westmoreland County, with people coming in here, with Forbes Hospital now having a Trauma 1 center, and UPMC East. A lot of the influx of commerce and people coming here for medicine, because we're kind of the mini Oakland, coming in here, coming from the east. That's where I think the future is, really, is what I think. And I've always said that about Monroeville, because you have more development and more of a population growing in Westmoreland, in western Westmoreland County.
Tim, that's a great point. Just coming like from a personal standpoint, right? If I want to go to Children's downtown, or I can come to the Monroeville like specialty care, I'll do that. And then on the way, my kids will probably want to stop at Chick-fil-A, and maybe we'll go to Kohl's. So, it is a great community where you're not fighting downtown, but you have this kind of like safer, more open community to, as we like to say in our mission and vision, live, work, and play.
So many topics I wanted to get to with you guys, but we're running up against time. But I do want to kind of end with one thing, a little bit of reflection. I mean, some things that you hope people would take away and remember about your time here, and sort of for the present regime. Similarly, what are some things that you hope to impress upon with the community while your time is here. So just a little bit of reflection and some things that you would like to have people remember about your time here.
Dr. Lang, what do you want us to be remembered by?
Yeah, thanks. So I really like to work on grant writing, and we're currently working through implementing a new finance software. And so really, as an assistant manager, I really look at like how I can be supportive to our departments and our community, and what can I bring to the table that nobody else might have time for, or maybe that they might not have the skill set for. So if I'm able to help Parks and Rec get, $2 million in grants over my tenure here, or I'm able to help the Monroeville Foundation grow and become, better at fundraising, or, helping them to go after other foundational grants, and just working on making sure the finance process moves even more smoothly as we go through like capital planning and we enter into a new software system. I just really want to be remembered for that like supportive role.
For me, it's just one word: service. I think of it as like an inverted pyramid. The role of the manager is to assist, serve, so that others can do their job well. It's like foot washing. It's sort of a menial thing at times, but it's essential. I don't make arrests. I don't fill potholes. I just try to make sure that people are able to do that safely. So I like to be thought about as a servant.
Good, Marshall.
Well, I just like to feel that people who live here realize that what at least I try to do was make sure that you had everything that you would expect from a community. In that you had the facilities, you had the services, you had the comparatively low taxes. You had it all, and we try to provide that as best we could, and even some little additional things like our public safety training center, the support we used to give to the volunteer fire service, which keeps everything relatively inexpensive. And again, just the facilities that what I try to do is work to get a sort of a full service municipality. Yeah.
Well, I would just have to echo what Marshall just said. My tenure here, I would just like to say that, keeping a full service community just rolling and delivering those services every day, that in and of itself is a huge job. And as I said at the outset of our conversation here, every day I did walk into the office what's going to be the surprise today? And I would say that to my secretary, Dara, what's going to be our surprise? Not every day, but most days, what's going to be our surprise? It could be something very small or it could be something big. And I was always psychologically prepared for that. But with that, just the little problems that you constantly come up with, and most of those problems are solved at the staff level, at the department head level, but at least being aware of them, because at any time a resident could call up and letting the resident know what the problem was and how it's being resolved. So I would just like to think that my time here, people would think that, as Marshall said, they got their services delivered, and we do have a lot of them, including an animal shelter. I don't know, I think there might one other. There's a jointure between Upper St. Clair and Bethel Park, I believe it is in Greentree, that has an animal shelter as far as a municipal animal shelter. And we came to one time where we were thinking about privatizing that, and I am glad we did not, because even though the animal shelter, it may be a cost center, but I think it's a great facility. I think it's a great service that we give to this community. And that's one thing I'll say about that. But no, I just like to have a reflection of just keeping the services moving and delivering those to the people at a good bang for their buck.
Excellent. Very well said, all of you. Typically, for this portion of the show, we give way to Alex to give his manager's minute, a message with a topic of his choosing delivered to you. Like I said, the format for this show is a little different. So with everyone at the table here having the title manager in their title, we thought it'd be a unique opportunity to hear from everyone. Some parting words, if you will. So with that, Marshall, let's start with you.
I'm over 80 years old, and throughout my life, I think I've been very fortunate. Made it through the Vietnam War without any issues. And coming to Monroeville, I think, was a privilege and a fortuitous activity in my life. I was able to start when I was a relatively young man, 28 years old, as the manager, and saw Monroeville through its development heyday, if you would. It was a lot of work. We had some characters on the strip here, but managed to develop the community in a way that I think was most advantageous for all those involved. So I always felt that Monroeville fit me, and I was fortunate in having a good staff. I worked with a lot of wonderful, dedicated elected officials, and I'm just delighted to see that some of the plans that we had, the aspirations, the dreams we had for a better community for all the residents has seemed to come true and come full fruition. And I think with both Tim and Alex and now MK, I'm very optimistic that this tradition of professional management, of community service is in good hands. Thank you, Monroeville.
MK, and for you, what do you have?
Yeah, thanks, Jared. So for my manager minute or assistant manager minute, I just want to take a moment to just say how humbled I am to be able to just have mentorship from 3 generations of municipal managers. As a young individual in the field, it's important to make those connections and to have 3 people who have led this community and can currently lead this community so well, just to bounce ideas off of, seek advice from, and really just learn and just soak it in like a sponge. And that just goes along with celebrating the 75 years that we've had established here in Monroeville. And I'm looking forward to the next 75 and just piggybacking off of the legacy that Mr. Bond and Mr. Little have created and that Alex is creating. And just that camaraderie of driving our mission to protect, support, and enrich our community through unbiased and long-term decision-making. And to sit here with 3 generations, that definitely focuses on long-term planning for the municipality. And I look forward to being a part of that and using my skill sets through grant writing, through capital and budget planning, through foundational and community outreach support, and just overall helping to be a part to ensure that Monroeville maintains a place to live, work, play, and stay.
Tim, what do you have?
Well, Jared, I'd just like to say I am immensely proud to have served as a manager here in Monroeville. It truly was the capstone of my 34 years in local government management. I'm proud to have served in a community that is what I call vibrant, diverse, and I do believe it is resilient. And I am proud to continue to live in Monroeville. And I continue to be involved in the Monroeville Foundation, in the Monroeville Rotary. Rotary has made great progress under the leadership of my predecessor, Marshall Bond. And I would like to think that I built upon what Marshall started here and what he accomplished. And Alex will continue that progress that I think I have made with respect to a solid financial footing and a municipality that has a reputation for hiring and maintaining a professional staff. But no matter the leadership, the element that takes a community from good to great is instilling a sense of pride in every resident. And that's very difficult to do. No matter what age, what demographic or occupation, if every citizen here in Monroeville has an underlying pride of being from Monroeville, it creates a solidarity within the region that Monroeville is someplace special, which I think it is. Whether it comes to academics, sports, or community involvement, or being on the Chamber of Commerce, or just helping out at the food banks we have here in Monroeville, when you say to another person from the Pittsburgh area that you're from Monroeville, they think, yeah, I heard great things are happening out there in Monroeville. We have one of the finest police departments and the finest fire departments in Western Pennsylvania that continues to maintain a strong presence through ensuring that response time remains excellent. Recent initiatives have focused on high-tech law enforcement, which will strengthen the neighborhood safety, which Alex has implemented. We also have one of the finest public works departments in the state of comparable size. Road repair and maintenance projects have always been progressed and scheduled under the leadership of Paul Hugas. While I was the manager here, the Municipal Separate Stormwater System, otherwise known as MS4 initiative, was established under Paul and Jamie Story's leadership. I think that is one of the big things that I did when I was here. With the recent purchase of the Monroeville Mall by Walmart, Monroeville will experience the next generation of increased businesses and commerce. There will be a transition, there is no doubt about that. Businesses in the Monroeville looks bright and a new retail and dining options. Moreover, spring recreation and programs have launched through the leadership of Paul Estock and the Park and Recreation Department, including family events, youth and sports leagues, and participation in these programs continues to grow each year. The community is proud of the heartbeat of Monroeville. It's the invisible thread that connects neighbors and inspires volunteers and motivates our youth to achieve when we are the residents take pride in their hometown. It encourages involvement in local events, fosters mutual respect, and strengthens the collective identity of Monroeville.
All right, Alex, and for you, you're up.
As we celebrate 75 years of Monroeville, I want to take a moment to reflect on something that often happens behind the scenes, but it's absolutely essential to how our community functions every day, and that is municipal leadership. Monroeville didn't just become a regional center as it is today by accident. It was built intentionally over decades of service, commitment, and professional management. The two individuals particular stand out in that story are with me today. Marshall from the 70s through the 80s, and again back in the 90s and the thousands, and Tim from 2010 to 2023 have served our community well and helped transition the community from a limited service borough to a full service home rule municipality that has become the regional center for so many things, as we've mentioned already today, in hospitals. And it's created a stability and a vision for what we are now and what we will become. And decades later, we will see back at this time as a transition period that we hope the two of us will have received the baton well and carried it forward as we provide excellent financial services, operational services, and face the challenges that are coming to us in the years ahead. And it's an honor to be able to serve here and together alongside with many others to serve well and to lead us into the future. Leadership is what it's about. And I'm very grateful that I'm accompanied by so many excellent leaders and look forward to being able to look back on this time as we didn't drop the ball, we kept the baton and we moved it forward. Thank you.
Great, and thank you all. I just want to, really truly thank you for being a part of this show. This show means a great deal to myself and Alex since we rebooted it. Marshall, I guess you got it started. So yeah, it's an honor to have you all on. Thank you for your time. This just kind of kicks off what we hope is a series of these type of roundtable discussions. Next month, we're planning on having some former police chiefs and our current police chief be a part of a roundtable discussion. So be on the lookout for that. Also, as we always mention, all of our shows are archived on our YouTube channel. So any episode, we're going on 2 years strong now with these monthly. So YouTube is where it's at, where you can catch these archived. And again, for our guest today, my name is Jared Robinson. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all once again for being on. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.